Hello, and welcome to the Backyard Show. This week, James and I sit down with Max and Jules of the band Interesting Hobbies Club. We'll discuss their recording techniques, their upcoming collaboration together, and Jules' love for Clairo. You can listen to Interesting Hobbies Club wherever you stream music. And now, let's get into the show. How are you guys working right now?
I mean, the past few weeks we haven't really been because our guitarist is back at home in London and our bassist is back in Maryland. We have all of the audio recorded for our next EP, so I've just been mixing that the past few weeks. And then once that's out, we already have a ton of songs for our second album, and by then everybody will already be back, so we'll just keep recording in my garage like how we've been.
Nice. Do you have any estimate as to when the EP is going to drop?
Yeah, it should be in about a month, or release a single in maybe 3 weeks.
3 weeks, so it should be out by the time you're hearing this.
Oh,
check it out.
Exciting.
Do some rewinding and just trail it back a little bit. How'd you guys form? Because I know you guys said you were at Occidental.
So my first year of college, my roommate was Parker, our guitarist, and he would always go to these parties at this room called Booth 208. And he'd be like, Max,
Braun 208.
Braun 208. And he'd always be like, Max, come with me. Come to this party. And I didn't want to go to a college dorm party because that sounded terrible. But then one night Parker came back and he was like, I met one of the guys whose room it is. His name's Jules. He makes really good music. And I know you want to start a band, so you should meet him. And I was like, cool. I'm still not going to go to a party though. So I didn't ever go to his room. I didn't know who he was. And then at the very last day I was at Oxy, I was like, there's nothing better to do. I might as well go up to Jules' room and check out his party. And he met me and I met him and we were like, oh, you're the guy Parker's been talking about. And I was like, I want to hear some of your music. And so he played his demo version of Golden Dandelions on the speaker. And I was like, this is sick. I want to make music with you. Little side note, that same night, our first bonding experience, I found him puking in the bathroom.
Hey, I was drinking Smirnoff Ices, and by the time I was 8 in, you just don't even know it. And it was a rough night.
Yeah, so that was me and Jules' first meeting. And then at the very start of our next school year, we hit each other up and us two just started jamming in the drum room. And then very quickly I got Parker in on it, and then we decided to look for a bassist, and we tried one or two people out, but we didn't really like them. And then we found Alex, and
fun fact about Alex, we were in choir together, and it was must have been the second week, and we were doing fun facts about each other or whatever, a get to know you. And I was my fun fact was I'm Jules, and I'm starting up a band or whatever, something like that, kind of not to flex, but just kind of just say it, And then after the choir rehearsal, Alex, our bassist, comes up to me. He's like, yo, Jules, I hate to brag, but I'm a really good bassist and I would love to jam with you. And I was like, okay, I like that confidence, and it just worked out.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah.
He's crazy.
So you talked about you already had a version of Golden Dandelions when you met him. What was the process like from taking your version to the full band's?
We didn't change anything.
No, I mean, I really that was kind of the first song that I was man, I really like this, So I had the whole idea sculpted out, I knew every little bit, and I think we kind of just agreed on how the demo version, and then.
Yeah, and I put tiny little differences in the drum part. Guitar is the exact same. Alex does his own thing with the bass. It's really good though. But I feel it was basically the same from when you made it and then when we put it together.
So your guys' band name is Interesting Hobbies Club, yeah?
Yeah.
I did my research. How did you come up with that name?
So we actually had a name before this we were called 0 Degree because we just needed a name, and I was like 0 Degree, and everyone was like, okay, cool. And then there ended up being like a German heavy metal band also called 0 Degree. And so when you would look us up online, we would get clumped in with them. Like this heavy metal band's #1 song was Golden Dandelions. And we were like, that's wrong. And so we decided that we needed, our own name that was unique. And we took like a month and a half trying to figure it out. And we just couldn't. And then Jules, over quarantine in the group chat, he was like, what about Interesting Hobbies Club?
Yeah, and so this is kind of not a long story, but like in senior year of high school at PHS at Pasadena High School, they this new club formed called Interesting Hobbies Club, and it really was just a bunch of douchebag rich white kids who bring in people and interview them and have them talk, and it sounds okay on paper, but they just started being assholes and I don't know. They're just total assholes. They got shut down eventually.
Were you in that club?
No, I hated them. So me and my best friend in high school, we hated them, but I liked their name. So as soon as they got shut down, I was I texted the leader and I was like, yo, can I use your name for a band? And so me and my friend Dennis in high school, we had a little music project called Interesting Hobbies Club. We didn't record anything. But then I texted him and I texted Dennis and I was like, yo, could we use Interesting Hobbies Club? And he was like, yeah. So now it's our name.
Do you remember any of the names that you guys didn't decide on? Are there any good ones?
I do remember for a period of time, we were thinking about naming it after a fish, a specific kind of fish. There were some fish names that you threw out. No, not edible fish, pretty fish.
Oh, dude, because I saw some bands with there's a band called Fish, I think, and I always thought that was dope, And I was like, well...
But it's with a PH.
Yeah, with a PH. And I was like, that's kind of a cool idea, though, so I just looked up, fish names. I don't remember this, must have been, trout, wrasse, I don't know. Just random fish names.
You guys were this close to being called Bass.
I know. And then our guitarist, Parker, he's such a sad boy. He would always just throw out really sad names. And we're like, it's just too depressing. We cannot be represented by that. And so it was a really long process deciding a name, but we finally came to it.
How do you guys work right now? Are you rehearsing for anything, or are you just focused primarily on recording stuff?
For the past semester, technically from August to December, we were jamming maybe once a week. And that was just the routine for the whole semester. Just getting a lot better at playing together.
And I think right now we're kind of in a creative period where it's we're thinking about the second album. We've got the EP to work on, but at the same time, at least for me, I'm really trying to get into a writing mode, And I think you're doing the same with producing.
How do you get into that writing mode?
I feel I'm it's kind of, I don't know. I'm not one of those. I'm not someone who is you know what, I'm feeling creative today. I'm gonna sit down and write a love song or a sad song. It's more I'll just be watching TV, and one of the characters will say something, and I'll be it'll ring with me, and then it'll be I'll write some lyrics off of that, because I'm very big into one-liners. So I always just write down something someone says, and I have long notes of that.
Is that physically writing or in your phone?
Just on my notes, yeah.
It's so disorganized and messy, it stresses me out.
I just, but that's I feel that's a really good way to write. It's very natural,
So then when you come to write a full song, you're just taking various one-liners and just kind of gluing them together?
Either that, or it's I'll be so inspired by this one or two lines that I'll be able to feel the whole song off of it, because I think the best songs have a few lines where you really it rings in your ear, you're it really resonates with you. So I think, I don't know, I like writing that way. Yeah.
What kind of software do you guys use to record? I know you said you had the studio at the school. What kind of software are you using then? What are you using on your laptops, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so for recording in my garage, we just use Ableton because I do all the production on Ableton, so it's best to use. When we're at school, we'll probably use Pro Tools, just because it has the best audio recording functionality. But those are really the only two that we ever use.
Are you guys plug-in heavy, or are you just using the stock
What do you mean by plugin heavy?
Like do you buy a lot of third-party plugins, or are you using stock?
I actually don't, because my brother lived in New York for a few years. Billie Eilish's brother Phineas stayed with my brother for a few months, and Phineas gave my brother a bunch of just stock plugins, like cracked.
I have a story about this.
Waves plugins, like a bunch of cracked Waves plugins, like thousands of dollars worth. And then my brother airdropped them to me. So I just have a bunch of Waves plugins that I, just use.
Hold up, side note. So James actually told me that, probably a year ago, that you got the samples from Phineas.
Because I was showing off all my sample packs, like, look at this, look at this.
Yeah, and I was like, no way. But the way he described it was just so what?
I tell stories like they're very surreal.
Yeah, so then that's just been in my head. So then I went to NAMM last year, and I went to his talk, Phineas's talk, and I was like, there was a mic in the aisle, and I was right on the aisle.
This man was at the talk, and he was texting me, should I ask him about Max?
Because they were like, all right, we're going to do questions at the end. And I'm like, I don't have any questions. But I'm like, dude, should I get the facts on this? So I ended up...
He low-key didn't believe me.
Yeah.
He's like, nah.
I could have just texted you or DM'd you, but I wanted to go right to the source. So I was like, shit, should I do it? But I'm like, okay, if the answer is yes, then what? So I'm like, then if the answer is no, then I just wasted that question, and everybody in the room is going to burn me.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, thank you for confirming that on the Backyard Show.
Phineas has no idea who I am. He knows my brother, but...
We'll tag him in this episode.
Yeah.
Then he'll know. Wait, so what Waves plugins do you guys tend to use on your productions?
Let's see. Oh, actually, I did buy one plugin. It's the FabFilter Pro Q. One of the best EQs. I use that for most every track. I actually use the CLA 76 and 2A for compression. I put both of them on our vocal tracks, actually, because they make a really nice sound. H Delay is a really good delay plugin. Reverb, really good reverb plugin. Abbey Road Studio is a really good reverb plugin for vocals. Shep 73 is a nice additive EQ. It adds a lot of saturation to anything you put it on. SSL Comp on the mix bus, REQ on the mix bus just to cut the low and high out. And then for mastering, I don't use much. I use a J37 tape to add saturation, just make it sound nice. And then I'll sometimes put 2 limiters on it, just so each one has to do less work. And all of this is just Waves plugin, so it's...
Max also likes to put reverb on the master.
The master?
No, I do not. No, I do not. Do not.
I saw him do it earlier.
He made me do it.
I just wanted to hear what it would sound like, man.
Sounds like you're in an ocean.
I liked it.
No.
So you guys have a pretty solid vocal chain throughout all the songs?
Yeah, it's basically the same for every song. For the vocals that we have in our upcoming songs, I'm experimenting a little more. I'm doing having him do 6 takes, panning them each different ways, putting maybe telephone effects on some, really far echoes on others. So I'm just experimenting a lot more with how the vocals sound. Because in the first album, it was very just straightforward. His vocals are front and center. Maybe there's some reverb, maybe it's a double. But with these new songs, I'm just messing around a lot more.
Let's talk about the last song on the album, Turn to Gold. Can you walk us through the production of it?
Yeah, God. That song was just so daunting before I started because there was so much to it. The drum part, I rewrote it maybe 10 times because I couldn't find something I liked. The keys, he told me the chords that he was playing on guitar, and from there I just figured something out. And then when it got down to the actual production, for the first half was pretty easy. It's just a soft guitar, mellotron, flute, synth, and his vocals. And so that wasn't hard at all. But when it comes to the build-up, that part was difficult because, there's this insane guitar solo going on. There's keys in the background. Our bassist is just doing a ridiculous solo. So I actually... I started by splitting the keys into 2 tracks, 1 bass, 1 melody, and I panned it hard left and right. I cut a lot of the solo guitar out, and then I boosted one specific part of it that just like fit well with the keys. Bass, I added a decent amount of high end for a bass just so it stood out more. And then the rhythm guitar, you can hear it in like the first 2 phrases of the build up, and then it kind of fades out, because, you know, it's not important at that point. It's unnecessary, so why not just like have it slowly go away?
Hey, that's my guitar part.
It's all your guitar part.
I know.
And then right at the climax of the build up, I put an 808 in because, you know, it like encapsulates the feeling like we're building up this whole time, and then there's finally a release.
He did that many times.
I put 3 808s in our album.
It's like an Easter egg, you know. There's some Easter eggs.
Was that one of the tracks where you're all in the same room, or is that when you guys were sending files?
All in the same room. That was the last song we recorded together, just because it was, you know, really hard.
And like, yeah, the second half of the song, when it's like there's the build up and then like the huge chorus at the end, like that part was largely unwritten. Like I was like, when I wrote it, I was like, there's gonna be a build up here with like maybe these chords, I don't know. But so like we had to really like spend like a few hours almost figuring out the build up and then like the chorus and like what we were gonna do there. So it was a challenge, but it was fun. Yeah.
What songs on the album were primarily sending files back and forth?
In the Garden, I think.
Blank Slate.
Blank Slate, Clean Break. Beach Plums.
Boys
was made entirely during quarantine. Parker sent me this little like really slow guitar riff. I was like, I like that.
That's the interlude, right?
Yeah, that's the interlude. So he sent it to me, and I sped it up like 40 BPM. I put, you know, just a really fast drum beat on it. I had Chris Wells write guitar chords for that. And then I had a solo idea in my head for guitar, so I just recorded the guitar solo. And that was just like how we made the whole song. And the bassist eventually sent us his part. And so we do have maybe like 5 or 6 songs that we made just entirely over quarantine.
So sending files back and forth, that was pretty unusual like last year. Is there any production techniques that you used on State of Being Here that would be experimental or odd? I'll give you an example maybe. On the song that I put out recently, I have like a chime in it. Mm-hmm. So I went to Guitar Center and like recorded the chimes there.
Yeah.
Is there anything like weird that you guys might have done like that that's included in the album?
Oh, I get what you mean. No, nothing like that on the album. For Sunspot, our single we released after the album, there's stuff like that. Let's see, I play spoons.
We had like a salt shaker.
Yeah, we put rice in a shaker.
Yeah.
We tried to put him playing harmonica on it.
I don't play slide guitar, but we recorded slide guitar. I was just messing around.
Yeah, we just made that one day in his room. But we've been doing stuff like that more. Like we wrote a song last week, and for all of the percussion, we used the sound of leaves crunching. We used sliding our feet on grass as a shaker.
Turf.
The kick drum was him dropping a soccer ball. So we're definitely messing around more with stuff like that.
Is that a experiment that you're gonna do in other songs, or is that just that song?
We'll probably do it in other songs. I feel like we'll do it more in the stuff that just you and I make together.
Yeah.
You mentioned right there that you guys were working on stuff together. Can you elaborate on that?
We like, I don't know. We live like next week, like really close to each other, you know, while like the other half of the band like kind of lives like across the country. So like I feel like we're kind of always at each other's houses, like, and like I don't know, we're just kind of like being more free about it and just being like, let's fuck around and make like a bedroom pop song. I don't know, like no creative restrictions, you know, where it's not like we're like trying to write for like a band where it's like we have like this like style, you know. It's like we're like, let's do whatever we want, you know. And like I don't know, I just think it's kind of fun to just like let some like creativity out with no consequences, you know, just like
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. We've made a few songs. I really like some of them. I want to release them. But the hardest part is getting a name. We need a name.
We gotta talk about the Clairo song.
I don't want to talk about the Clairo song.
Can I talk about the Clairo song?
Yeah, okay.
I just have a really big crush on Clairo. So I was like, Max was like, we were like, let's make a bedroom pop song, right? And I was like, sure, I'm down. and I was like, can we serenade Clairo? And the whole song is just about like, it's just like a bunch of Clairo song titles as like lyrics.
That's sick. That's a
Hopefully,
great
like,
idea.
Yeah, right. Maybe it'll become like a TikTok famous song, and then Clairo will see it, make a TikTok to it, and then it'll be like,
And y'all and Clairo can get together and
yeah. We should be like, who's the vocalist on this? And then, I don't know. I like to fantasize.
We'll also tag Clairo in this.
Please, yeah.
Phineas, Clairo, just such a good lineup.
Write that in the notes. We need Clairo and Phineas.
Is it gonna be called Pretty Boy? Like Pretty Girl? Is that what her song's called?
No, it's
I
called
could be-
Clairo.
It's called Clairo?
There's no subtlety behind it, dude.
He spells Clairo out at
Yeah.
some point.
Just so people really know what I'm talking about, you know?
So you guys have been having fun just making music together lately.
Yeah.
I'm sure that'll fuel the creative inspiration for the band later on too, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, half the time when we sit down to like write, I think now it's more like, let's just like write and like, let's just like jam. And sometimes it's like, oh, this is for the band, or oh, this is just
You can like,
whatever.
when we make it, you can feel whether or not it's for the band or it's for something else. Just because, you know, there's, at this point, you can just associate how something sounds with, you know, I don't want to say the aesthetic, but like how people associate the band with music. And you can just tell whether or not it fits.
So let's talk about the new stuff without being too informative.
Yes, sir.
In 3 colors, the new music you guys are working on.
like the EP or the album.
I guess the album.
White.
White, really?
First song. Reminds me of White.
What's the first song? Oh,
Yeah.
that reminds me of like a deep, dark blue.
Really?
Yeah.
I imagine White because of the strings. When it
Okay.
opens up and it's like,
Yeah.
oh.
The organ reminds me of like a dark blue.
Okay,
Yeah.
I get that. So we got White and Dark Blue. Those are 2.
There's like some of the faster songs and like the heavier songs, maybe like Red, like dark.
I was thinking
dark
Red, too,
you know?
yeah.
Like Frenzy, Wednesday.
Yeah. Bro. Hey, so we have 2 songs called Frenzy and Wednesday. Wednesday.
So you guys already have like a rough track listing for that?
We have like 11 songs for the
For the album?
Mhm.
I feel like we have like 8.
9.
We'll settle with 9.
So like when you're doing the track list and stuff, how do you go about that? Like when you're on the last album, like how did you be like, oh, this is the order I want the songs? What were you doing? Were you making a playlist? What was the dealio?
This was the same night that we were deciding the album title.
You just kind of like mess around, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it takes forever. I felt like it took forever.
We talked about how we wanted it to flow. We talked about the themes behind each song and like what would work best. And, you know, it was just basically puzzle solving for an hour and a half. And we even switched it up after that. Like after we first decided that, we got rid of a few songs. We put some new songs on there. So it's like, it's flexible as well.
Did you make any alterations to production once you figured out your track list? Or was it pretty solidly like, this is the order, this is how it should sound? Because it really flowed beautifully.
Yeah, I think once we just organized it, like I said, it took like, we switched it up a few times, but then we finally got to the point where we knew exactly how every song would go into the next one. I put transitions between some songs just so like it felt natural. Yeah.
Are there any places that you tend to go to write songs? Maybe like an emotional place, a physical room?
My bed. I mean, like, yeah, I like to write when I wake up or right before I go to sleep. So I feel like all my best stuff is just created from bed, really. Yeah. Weirdly, I write like something about being really hungover. Like I'm always creatively inspired when I feel like shit in the morning. I had like, you know, maybe a crazy night. For some reason, I'll just be lying in bed feeling like shit, and I'll be like, shit, where's the guitar? You know, like, yeah.
So you're mostly writing on guitar?
Yeah, just because like now, like being at college, I don't have a piano nearby. I have a keyboard, but I don't like to write on keyboard, so it's definitely guitar. But in high school, when I was writing, I would just write on the grand piano at my parents' house.
There's a little bit of keyboards on the album. Is that all soft synths, or are you guys using physical?
Yeah, it's all Omnisphere. Yeah, that's another plugin I bought, Omnisphere. My brother and I went half and half, but they're all from that plugin.
But I'm really trying to like save up a little bit to buy like a really nice pair of grand piano mics, because I would love to have some like real like live recorded grand piano on our next album or just next songs. Yeah.
So let's talk gear. What are you guys using to record your stuff?
Okay, we are getting a little experimental when it comes to recording guitars. He took what mic are you using for that? You know,
Dude, I'm using it's not even like it's a dynamic mic, but it's like a really low quality, not even like a Shure, my mom bought it for me in like 12th grade, but it can take a lot of sound, so I have two of them, so I just put it up to the amp, and sometimes I'll put one behind the amp if it's like a hollow body.
That's the main mics you guys use for everything you have out?
for
the guitars.
Yeah, and then we put usually a blanket over the amp and the mics when we record the guitars.
I mean, I would love to use nicer stuff, but like I just can't afford like really nice mics, and I feel like we're making good enough. Like,
No, it sounds great.
On to Dream Gear.
Dream gear? Yeah, let's do dream gear. Since
We're on the topic of gear right now. We have a little segment on the show called Dream Gear. Cue Dream Gear music.
It's time for Dream Gear.
All right, so dream gear. Dream microphone, dream outboard gear, and let's do dream guitar pedal.
I honestly just I don't even know my gear, I don't know names that well. I could tell you like my dream guitar. That's about it.
Dream guitar then.
Well, I don't know. I have a Fender Telecaster Baja. I hate it so much. And I'm really just I'm also trying to save up for a new guitar. I really want to either get a Fender Jaguar or a Fender Jazzmaster, like the classic Kurt Cobain. I don't know.
I my dream equipment would be a really nice production desk. I have a tiny desk that I produce on. It's cramped.
Is that's in the garage?
That's in my garage, yeah. And then acoustic padding. That's really all that I want. And once I do that, I'll just feel so much better.
Again, you can listen to Interesting Hobbies Club on all streaming platforms. And keep your eyes out for that new Max and Jules project coming soon. If you haven't already, you can join our mailing list at www.thebackyardshowpodcast.com to be notified when new episodes are released. Thanks for listening. This has been The Backyard Show.